Well, hello and welcome to Nodes and Biscuits, a Godot Game Dev Podcast, where I'll be interviewing guests that are Godot game developers, and every now and again, I'll introduce an episode that takes a look at what's new in Godot. For today, I invited a guest who's a good old friend of mine called Geppy. We take a look at what this podcast is going to be about. I ask Geppy what he thinks about it, and then we go into his game dev history, so to speak. I'm Christoph Klestel, your host, and let's get straight into the episode, shall we? You know, no podcast is great from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
It never happens. No one's ever started a podcast that was amazing from the very beginning.
You don't know. Might be someone born for this.
I guess you might be right, yeah. But there's so many elements involved in that, right? You get the technical setup, then you get the way you act, the way you hold yourself, and the way you interact with people. It's wild.
Yeah.
Right on.
I still need to learn how to interact
with people.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the best way of interacting with people is not interacting with people.
Not interact.
Of course, it depends on your end goal, right? If your end goal is to not have to worry about it, then yeah. But on the other hand, if your end goal would be to get some piece of information out of the person, then I'm not sure that's going to go down well.
Yeah, I don't think it'll work.
No. All right, Geppy, I think we can ease into the podcast. What say you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So this is a new podcast. Now the podcast is going to be, or rather already is by the time this episode is released, Nodes and Biscuits. We are, and also Geppy, thank you very much for being here with me for the first episode.
Thank you.
We are going to be talking about two things, right? First thing is going to be the podcast. What I imagine the podcast to be, and what sort of delivering information to people listening to it so that they know what to expect from future episodes. And then, we can go into a conversation around those topics, just to see what your expectations would be from a podcast such as this one. And that might give me new ideas. So I'll be changing the format afterwards. And then the second thing, we'll take a look at us, the game developer that you are, and the game developer that I am. And with that, I think we can begin. Do you have any questions before we start, Geppy?
Do I need biscuits? I forgot mine.
Oh, no. Don't worry, I'll send you a package.
Okay.
For the next episode that you'll be joining me on, there'll be biscuits.
I'm gonna have to get those biscuits.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So first of all, I'm Christoph Klestel. I just a short introduction so that everyone knows what's going on here. I am a game developer. I started game developing in I got serious about hobby development, I would say, in 2018, 2019. So right around that time. At the moment, I run a studio that I co-founded with my friends called Mad Cookies. And that's about it. We're making games. Geppy, give us a very short and a sweet introduction of yourself.
Well, it's not too much to me. I've been coding for a very long time as a hobby and found Godot, and I've been making games since. I've also done a bunch of other like software developer related things, not just in Godot. And I haven't published any games on Steam yet, unfortunately, but that will change in the near future, I hope.
Well, I think you should. But you do have some games on itch, don't you?
I do, yeah, but they're just jam games.
Yeah. But some of the studio owners that I know here in Bratislava say that they always take a look at game jams for inspiration for their next projects.
It's a lot easier to make a game jam game than commit to like a full game.
No, it absolutely is. Also, let me just dive a little bit into something that you said. Would you? So this is a Godot Game Dev podcast. Would you say that Godot is what made you more serious about game development, or even allowed you to make games?
I wouldn't say a lot. I've been using other engines before that, but like Godot definitely made it more serious.
Interesting.
But it feels more homely than other engines, and I
Yeah,
think that's it.
that's a very interesting thing. So you mentioned more homemade. Is there anything specific about that you can point your finger at and say that's the thing why it feels good to be making games in Godot?
Uh, not not really. It's just hits right. I don't really know how to explain it.
No, yeah. I've got a very similar feeling, though. I sometimes I try to pinpoint what exactly it is about the editor that makes me enjoy the process. But yeah, there's so many options as well, so many things
Is
that
there
I can relate
anything specific or
Well, in general, I find the way that you use nodes and save them as scenes very fun. And
I
I
agree.
also, yeah. I think that's a really good one, right? It's also one of the most important things about Godot. And it's also why this podcast is going to be called Nodes and Biscuits, right? Nodes as in Godot nodes. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think we can. So the podcast, when you hear Geppy, I'm super curious about this one. When you hear someone say, "Yo, there's a Godot Game Dev podcast," what do you imagine, or what would you imagine that podcast is going to be talking about?
Some guys talking about Godot, probably. That
Yeah,
would be my first like expectation.
yeah. I think I would imagine that as well. And by the way, I think that, although we've only been recording for about 6-7 minutes now, I think we checked that box already. By the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is the idea that most people will have when they hear that as a Godot Game Dev podcast. In addition to just people talking about Godot, I plan on doing a couple of other things, a couple here being primarily two. So the first thing is interviewing people from the ecosystem of Godot. Not just ecosystem is a strong word. Rather than ecosystem, I'd say just from
Community.
the world of Godot. Sorry, what?
Community.
Community. Yes, community and ecosystem.
Yeah.
I see value in both. Right.
Yeah.
So an example of that would be that there is an insanely talented developer working on a really cool game, or a developer working on a really cool game, or just someone that I find extremely interesting, just, and inviting them over for an interview.
Yeah.
Inviting them over for an interview to ask about what they're working on, how they're working on it, how they're using the engine, are they doing anything cool about it. Um, a more specific example for here would be that we've known each other for a while.
Yeah. I met you in your Twitch channel a while
Yeah,
ago. At least a couple of years ago. Maybe 3 or 4, maybe even.
I think it was around that time. Yeah, but rather than you meeting me, I met you first, Geppy.
No. I met you first.
No.
I was a lurker for the first couple of days.
Nah, even before you were a lurker, you were streaming back then. And I remember going into one of your streams before you visited one of mine.
That's how I found you.
Yeah, that's how it all happened. And I remember that the first stream that I saw of you, there was this person in the chat. I don't remember their name, and uh, they started buying all sorts of subscriptions and presents, and they even mentioned that
Yeah, I
their
know
bank
exactly
called
who
them.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Apparently, their bank even called them to ask,
Yeah.
has someone stolen your account?
No, I helped them make a little program in Python actually refused to take payment for it because it was such a small
Oh,
thing, and they were paying me back like this.
through Twitch.
Yeah.
That is super cool. Yeah, but an interesting thing that I know about you and you using Godot, for instance, is that you like to put a class name on everything.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely
My
everything.
classes.
Right. You structure it that way. Have you ever, by the way, run into an issue because of this?
Many.
What sort of issues have you run into? And have those issues increased or lowered in number since Godot 4.2 or the Godot that you're using now?
I think it was already fixed in no. It was fixed in 4.0. I think it was the I don't remember what the error was called. It was the classes were calling circular or something.
Oh yeah,
Remember?
cyclical dependency.
Oh yeah. That's it. Not circular.
That was the one. I remember that error. That was a
Yeah.
nasty
Yeah.
error.
Yeah, that was I think the only major issue that I've had.
Right, right. And I think that got fixed in 4 point something, right? 4.0 or
Yeah,
4.1.
I was working on a project in Godot 3, and when I found out that they fixed it, I ported my game to 4 immediately.
You instantly upgraded it. You were like,
Yeah,
oh,
no. I'm not doing this and Godot 3 anymore. Jumping shit.
Oh no, yeah. I completely understand that. It was,
Yeah,
you're always weighing your options. Is this
yeah,
is this improvement going to outweigh the potential risk? But in this case, it was obvious, right?
yeah. Because I used the class names so much that it affected how I made things, and that solved majority of my problems.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's anyone listening who doesn't know what we're talking about here, so in Godot there's a scripting language called GD script. It's optionally typed, and if you optionally typed your scripts and you gave them a class name, they got registered as classes. And if two classes were referencing one another, the previous versions of Godot would throw a cyclical dependency error, meaning that neither of them could be loaded. And that was a super nasty error. I remember once when we were working on Cardboard, we had, the usual game manager script, although ours wasn't as bloated as the usual ones. But we had one of those, and there we had a class reference, and that class had a cyclical dependency error. And Godot didn't say which script this error was in. So we had to go through multiple references in Game Manager, and then we found out that this was several levels deep, and it took us a while to fix.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've had as well.
Yeah.
It was far very deep into the classes.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't even in the like classes that I was referencing in my manager. It was something way deeper.
No, yeah, I explained it wrong.
So
it was the same thing. It was the same thing, right? So the game manager was referencing something else. That something else was referencing something else. That was referencing something else. And then there was a script that couldn't be loaded, but the error would never say that it was that specific script. It was the game manager that couldn't be loaded because of the traversal through the tree. Well, weird stuff. But yeah, okay. So interviews with guests. Right, that's what I'm really looking forward to, and that's for now going to be the majority of the episodes. Do you see yourself, Geppy, as someone that would listen to this podcast? Do you listen to podcasts?
Oh yeah, I mean, when I'm working, I always listen to something. Well, most of the time it's just a video, a random video of someone.
Gotcha.
I guess programming, just something related to it.
Yeah, I do the same with streams. When I'm working, I put a game dev stream in the background. It makes me feel more productive.
It does.
It's so weird, isn't it? You're not even when I'm not doing anything, right? I start reading manga on my phone, for example. I put my feet on the table. I lean back and I'm listening to a game dev podcast, a stream. And in my head, I'm going, yeah, solving this issue. This guy.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well, even if I'm not coding at the time.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's the wildest thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apart from interviews, this is going to take a while to go through what this podcast is supposed to be. But apart from interviews, one other thing that I'd like to do is find a co-host. I still haven't decided or found the perfect person or a person that would have time and I would like to do a co-hosting with. I've asked you, Geppy, haven't I?
Yeah, you have. I still haven't decided, even though I said probably not.
Yeah.
I'll consider it.
A-
I am
Absolutely.
enjoying it so far.
Absolutely. Look, this is the first episode, so
Yeah.
the listeners will already have known you by then, right? So if you decide that that's something that you'd be interested in, I think that could work really well. Also consider I have reached out to a couple of other people, so something will happen. And so with a co-host, I'd like to go over Godot news, so to speak. Something like this month in Godot. So in an ideal scenario, I imagine that there would be 3 interviews a month, and then one episode would be something like this month in Godot, and we would go over the most interesting things happening to the engine or that have happened to the engine in that month. There could be mentions of issues from GitHub, and sort of. I would mainly be doing this as a podcast that I would really appreciate myself, because I'm the sort of a weird guy falling asleep. And before I fall asleep, I start scrolling on my phone through the GitHub repository of Godot. And, and I'm checking out new issues. And I'm like, ooh, look at this person finding an interesting bug, eh? and that puts me in the mood and I fall asleep very nicely, right?
Right.
Has this ever happened to you?
I mean, I haven't fallen asleep to GitHub repo, but I have been watching coding videos on my phone before falling asleep.
Right. I think that's along the same alley, right? That's it's a very similar thing right there.
It's very easy to fall asleep to, like when you're trying to focus on something, when you want to learn something new that you had issues the previous day, you're trying to figure it out. I'm going to sleep.
I agree.
If that makes sense.
I agree. Yeah. It's all about this subconscious part of your mind, right?
Yeah.
You give it a task and you leave it alone. And you leave it alone.
Sometimes you wake up in the morning with a solution. And it's great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember talking to this guy called, so his name is Fauzi Mesmar. He works, shout out to Fauzi Mesmar. He's a great game designer. So I was talking to him at a game conference, and at the moment he works at Ubisoft. And I think it was him who told me about how Mario. Right, so Geppy, have you played Mario?
Not all of them, obviously, but some of them, yeah.
Yeah, some of them, right? So you're familiar with this unpopular game.
I know what Mario is.
Yeah. And there are these pipes, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the story of how the pipes were designed or why they were put there?
I have not.
No, I love this one, right? Check this out. So the game designer working on Mario, on the very first one, when he was a boy, he'd be going around, I think Tokyo. I would hate to ruin this, to paraphrase this or tell the story wrong. So I apologize for any mistakes and let me know if I do. But so basically, when he was a boy, he'd be walking around the streets of the city where he was growing up, and he would take a look at the drain pipes, right, and think to himself, if I were a really small person, I could go into those pipes and come out the other side, and I bet there'd be a different world there.
That's amazing.
Right? And then years later, they're like, yo, design a game. And he's like, what do I put in there? Maybe it could be a pipe.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. That's good.
Yeah. Now, I got so into telling this story that I forgot why I was saying it. We were talking about something related to this, weren't we?
I
Nope.
just remember pipes.
No, clearly not. But anyways, it's a really cool story, right?
Yeah.
I bet when I listened to this episode, I was like, "What the balls?"
I mean, we can always edit it.
No, this deserves not to be edited. I think this is very telling.
Okay.
So yeah, very cool regardless. Um, yeah, right. So a type of an episode where we also go into what's happened to Godot, what's new in Godot, why is it new in Godot, or maybe there could be. So Geppy, do you ever check out the Godot improvement proposals?
Not the proposals, no.
No. Right. Yeah. So again, to anyone who doesn't know what GIPs are, the Godot improvement proposals, there's a separate GitHub repository where people can post issues and discussions. And those issues and discussions are specifically designed to be the ideas people have for improving Godot. And they are voted on. And then if there is a person that is that would like to implement a specific feature someone has proposed, they can. And they reference it. They create a pull request, they reference that this improvement proposal was there and that they decided to make it happen. For example, I put in a proposal for adding 3D rotation to particles about 2 years ago, and it's still pretty popular. No one's done it yet, but fingers crossed.
I need to look into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Geppy, if you manage to put 3D rotation
I mean, not the
onto
particles, obviously. I don't know how to think about that.
You'd be a hero, not just of me, but of many other people, man. Right. Yeah. So the Godot improvement proposals, that's a very active repo that I would also like to go through once a month as a part of this month in Godot. Right. So going through the issues, the proposals, maybe a new version was released, so we could talk about what's new in that version. And because this is also going to be a video podcast, right? So I'm recording this now. Webcam is not mandatory. I could, or we could, show the new features, the new really fancy things in Godot, also on video. Not too much though, because it could be very uncomfortable for people just listening to us. So take a look at this, and have 5 minutes of silence and mouse clicking.
I mean, would somehow have to tell them what they're looking at, I guess.
Yeah, definitely something along those lines.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So basically, those are the two main types of episodes that this podcast is going to have. And, today is the very first episode. This is the very first episode that introduces the podcast. The podcast has been introduced. Geppy, would you say that you have a better idea of what this podcast is going to be about?
Oh, yeah. My news source of Godot news.
Yes. Once a month. Not not too often. Okay, good. And also developers making cool things. Don't forget about that one.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and of course I'm open to ideas. So if anyone has an idea for a really cool type of an episode that could be a part of this, let me know. Now, apart from that, just a general conversation about Godot is something to be expected. So that's something I am interested in. Geppy, let's waltz into talking about Godot. But for that, we need more context. How long have you been using it?
At the end of Godot 2, I believe. A while ago.
The end of Godot 2. So that was, I don't know, 2018, 2019, around that time, right?
Something like that.
And when you started using it, was Godot 3 Alpha already out?
No. It wasn't out. Well, when I first started in Godot, it wasn't immediately clicking, if that makes sense. I was at the time I was playing around in Game Maker, and it felt really easy to just move things around in Godot, and it felt kind of awkward in the beginning of Godot, especially in Godot 2. But when I got more into Godot, then it started to click, and
Oh yeah.
a couple months later, Godot 3 was announced, and I was hyped. and very very excited. I've been using it ever since.
Yeah. We probably share the timeline in terms of Godot, but in a slightly
Yeah,
different way, right? So you started using it with Godot 2, the end
yeah.
of Godot 2. The first time I ever opened Godot was so before Godot, I was using Blender Game Engine. Just before, just before Godot 3 came out, I opened up Godot 2, looked at it, and thought to myself, I can't work with this UI. I can't. I can't.
Let's say that.
I just I just couldn't. I looked at the UI and it looked so clunky. It looked like a, a
It did, yeah.
yeah, it looked like an operating system from '97 reimagined. And,
It
I couldn't even bring myself to try to begin to understand what's happening because of my
maybe
dislike
that's
of
why
the
it
UI.
didn't click. Maybe
Yeah,
that's why it didn't click immediately.
maybe that's why. And then when Godot 3 came out, I opened it
Oh
up.
yeah.
I opened up the alpha and I was like, ooh, I wouldn't mind learning a bit of this. uh, and right, we're skipping the past. Geppy, so how did you get into game development? You don't need to go into too much detail, just the interesting tidbits of information there.
I mean, I've played games since I was 4 years old.
Right,
I am now
right.
29.
4 years old. What sorts of? Wait, are we talking about peekaboo and then?
No, actually, my very first game was GTA 1. I'm 4 years old.
Yes, GT. Okay, that's a good first game. That's a really good.
Yeah,
first game.
yeah. Well, I didn't know what was going on. I just liked the yellow car that was driving around. I think I don't think I did any like real gameplay or I don't. I think I was just
Yeah,
driving
but no one
around.
is expecting you to be actually playing GTA
Yeah.
1 at 4 years old.
I mean, I should have been.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Clearly, you should have been. Absolutely. I'm going to hold this
But that
against you for a
car
while.
was my childhood.
Yeah. Do you still remember? By the way, from GTA 1, do you still remember the sound of cars when they started to get damaged?
I just remember the car and it was okay.
Just the car, nothing else.
Oh no.
All right. Well, nothing I can hold against you. You were 4 at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that? How did playing GTA 1 at 4 years old made you a game developer later on?
I mean, that made me a gamer, I guess. And
Okay.
my dad is a programmer. So
Oh, such a leg up. You're basically cheating
Yeah.
at this point. GTA,
I mean-
father being a programmer.
I mean, I didn't get too much help from him, but he's been trying every now and then.
Nice.
But yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty much
so-
how it happened.
I think you're skipping about 20 years there. Yeah, so at one point I was playing GTA, and then I was playing around in Game Maker in 2017.
I mean, the next obvious step from there is game development.
Yeah, obviously. So now we've got so many game developers. They all play GTA 1. I mean, I play GTA 1. I've never realized that this was a thing. All right.
That's why you became a game developer, because you played GTA 1.
I didn't know. I'm aware of it now. It never crossed my mind beforehand. I love this running theory, though. Dude, that's awesome. I'm learning. This is why I'm doing this podcast. So, okay. Yeah, so apart from these obvious things, was there I don't know, maybe have you tried modding a game before going into making games? Or,
I was making levels in Hammer, I think it was called.
Hammer.
Source games.
Yeah, Hammer, absolutely.
Oh, and before that, I was also really liking Warcraft 3. I was making levels in that. They weren't great because I was so young. I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
But
right.
I really enjoyed that.
Given your story with GTA, I was expecting you to say, it was great. I just made Dota. No. People,
No.
yeah, people copied it and they started to call it Defense of the Ancients or something like that. I can't
Something
remember.
like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot about that thing
That's
already.
the small side project.
Yeah, it was a failed map. Um, right. Okay. And what was the first game engine you used? Hammer is great, but it's a level editor, right?
Yeah. I think GameMaker was my first.
Oh,
But then I
nice.
moved away from it for a very long time and came back years later.
Okay. So you went away from Game Maker. You know,
Yeah.
you were a veteran by then. So you just took
No, I didn't know
years
what was
off.
going on. I
Right.
made a cube move, and that was a huge accomplishment.
Wait, a cube? You were doing 3D in Game Maker?
No, I mean no, I meant a square.
That's, okay. Right.
2D.
Gotcha. Yeah, you see a square, but you imagine a cube, right?
Yeah,
Of course.
I see everything in 3D.
Yeah, that's that's a lovely skill. But by the way, I had this thing. So when I was, I think I was around 10, maybe 9. No, it was earlier. So when I was 9, we had a PC, and my brother installed this program called Rhino 3D. It was a program for architecture and mechanical 3D modeling, right? And there was this beautiful car, and it was in 3D. And in my head, because I've always been, how they call it, this smart laziness, being lazy but being smart about it. In my head back then, I thought to myself, why would I ever bother with 2D when you have a program where you can skip all of those steps and just get a 3D car, which is obviously the intended result of any art, right?
Yeah.
for it to be 3D. All right. Okay. So Game Maker made a cube, hypothetical but actual 2D thing move, and then a couple of years later, you came back to game dev. Was that the point of Godot?
No, that was a couple. No, I wouldn't say couple. Maybe less than a year.
Okay.
Before I tried to go to.
Okay. Right. So you got back to Game Maker, but then
Yeah, there was something
to
between the breaks, between the Game Maker breaks. I just don't remember what it was.
Right.
It's been a while.
Yeah, gotcha. It's all water under the bridge by now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. And now Godot. Since it's both of us here. So my journey to Godot was, unfortunately, I didn't have the hero journey that you did. My my father was he worked as a police officer, so not much programming coming from his side. Which was a super cool job, by the way. I always loved listening to his stories. Now, my mom was a seamstress, but she would always design her own clothes. So I think that's where I had this tendency to be designing things, trying things from scratch. I think that's where it comes from, actually.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, when I think about the past, I always think that this was one of those things. So yeah, and I already told you about the shortcut I took to 3D. I basically saw a program that displayed a finished version of a car and thought to myself, that's what I'm doing. That's me.
Yeah.
Right. And then it never changed, by the way. Then I went to England. Unlike many other people, I took a gap year between secondary school and college, or so to speak, high school. Right. So in London, it was secondary school, college, and then university. Usually, people take a gap year between college and university. I took a gap year between secondary school and college because I couldn't find a college that would teach 3D. And I thought to myself, well, if I can't find one, I'll just learn at home. And back then I pirated a lot.
That's how I learned their stuff.
Rules. Yeah, right. You just learn it at home. It's so available. Well, back then it was less available, but still.
Damn.
Yeah. So I
How
started
long
doing
ago was this?
3D. So this was 2000, and it was the late noughties, right? So 2008, 9.
Okay.
Yeah. And as I started getting better at 3D, I was doing everything in 3D. I was learning how to do everything. I was doing rigging, animating, modeling, UV unwrapping,
Was that in
texturing.
Blender or the other program?
Oh no! So there wasn't much content for Blender. No idea why back then. The UI still looked like a command line application, by the way, when, around those years. So I started in 3D Studio Max, right? And then I thought, let's try something that's got a better looking logo. That was my motivation to try something else, and I tried Maya. And in Maya, I improved my skill set further, and then I stumbled upon Blender, and I thought, ooh, so the logo is worse, okay? Maybe the UI is better. I open it up, and the UI is definitely not better. Everything was a
Something.
shortcut. Yeah, the UI was really something back then. Everything was a shortcut. Everything was a command triggered thing. But I thought to myself, you know what, Christoph? If you can make even the most basic of things in Blender, that will prove your skill. So that's why I learned Blender, and I never stopped using it afterwards. I made a
The
super.
stuff I see you make now is just
Oh yeah, well, I've been using it for a while by now, right?
amazing. Yeah.
But back then, it was a miracle that I did what I did back then. Yeah, and then as I started getting better at things, I started trying game engines. So I tried Talk 3D. I tried one of the first versions of Unity. Well, no, it wasn't one of the first. I'd be lying about that. I think it was Unity 4. Back then, they also had other scripting languages, not just C Sharp. They had their own version of JavaScript as well.
Unity script or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So yeah, so I was doing a lot of engine hopping. I was using Blender Game Engine. I was using an Elf engine. Elf engine was everything that Blender Game Engine was not or could not be. It was never taken far enough, so you basically couldn't do anything there. But I tried another engine. Why not? I tried this one engine called Neo Axis. It's still in development even now, and it was designed for multiplayer first and third person shooters. So of course I designed a
Not heard
massive
of that
map.
before.
Yeah, no, it's I'm reaching into the bag of obscure game engines here, right? Because so I thought any mainstream engine that I pick is probably going to be really difficult. I don't know why I had this weird logic, and I thought to myself, if I find an obscure game engine, that's going to allow me to make better things more easily. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
It was not the case, really.
It was not.
Yeah, and then I got into Blender Game Engine. So from 2012 till 20, I don't know, 16, 17, I worked as an English teacher, and in my spare time, I'd be doing 3D modeling and game development in Blender Game Engine. Blender Game
I have a
Engine.
question about
Yeah,
that.
go for it.
When I tried the Blender game engine when I was announced that it would die, I just wanted to try it,
Yeah.
and I remember it having like these kind of blueprint-ish. Um, I don't really remember what they're called, but the nodes
Yeah,
that you just place down and you drag things around.
that's right.
Was it with those blocks or with code that you
It
made?
was it was wild. It was wild because the visual program. So Blender had a combination of actual scripting and visual programming,
That's
and
the one. Thank you.
yeah, and the visual programming in Blender was really fun because you only had 3 columns. I think you can still grab a version now. I think they revived it, not officially, but a big community effort to revive the
I'm pretty
Blender
sure
game
you
engine.
can. Yeah.
And the visual scripting was done in 3 columns, and the columns were input, operator, output. So input would be something along the lines of a variable has changed, or defining a variable, or a key was pressed. Then then in the middle you would basically do your basic checks. if only carry on in along this line of processing if it equals 0, if it is true, if it is false, and those sorts of things. And then output would then apply some logic onto the object. But you would essentially run into the limitations of the system pretty damn quickly.
Can imagine.
And at that point, you had to start coding in Python, which was super fun, by the way. Coding in Python is fun, to say the
Yeah, I
least.
think it is.
Yeah, so that got me into the general idea of trying to understand how that works, and that, I think, that set me up for Godot super well, because the language was already similar, and I started to understand some game development concepts. Right, something that I think you had in GameMaker. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where you already meet some game development concepts, and you're already working with game logic a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
And then,
But things were very different compared to Game Maker. I had to learn that.
oh yeah, what was it? What was it like in GameMaker?
I just remember that moving like objects, you had to do the collision yourself, and there was no UI components. And,
I've heard that GameMaker still has no UI components.
oh, still.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it here where I am now.
Wow. I mean, the UI system of Godot is one of the things that I really like.
Yeah.
But wait, we have to talk about this a little more. So there was no UI components. How did you do UI at all in GameMaker then?
You had to draw the sprites yourself and just kind of place them here and there, and then.
How did you place them?
I think it was just an object.
Okay.
And then to no, I don't remember exactly. But I remember having to get the when I wanted to click something, for example. I remember I had to get the coordinates of the click, and then I had to like narrow it down to a certain element, like the button, for example.
I gotcha.
If X is greater than mouse position
Oh
X.
no,
So
really?
I don't remember if there was any better.
It's wild. So you're basically tasked with really creating that entire UI
Yeah.
system by yourself.
But I was never like a game expert. I'm sure that's a better way. How I did that was not great.
Yeah. I mean, I think that. Well, okay. Tell me if I'm right. I've got a hypothesis. Okay. You were weighing your options, and you thought, okay, I could become an expert at this, or there's a different tool that has UI nodes, and then and then you considered what's going to be a better time investment.
I mean, UI wasn't the first thing that came to my mind when I wanted to try Godot. It was just that
Right.
I liked the look of Godot more. It felt more homely, and I liked the script, the GD script way more than Game Maker's own language.
Oh yeah, right. What would you compare the GameMaker language to? Is it also similar to Python, or is it similar to C, JavaScript maybe?
I don't know what it looks like, but I think it's closer to something like that.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear. Could you repeat
Java?
That? Okay.
I might be wrong. I need to see what it.
I remember, I coded a little bit in Java, and I remember it being extremely verbose in its keywords.
Java's horrible.
Before you even begin writing a function or the function name, you just go, things in there need to be correct. Oh, by the way, okay, so again, right, so for context, in the glory days of Godot 3, one of my gripes with the UI was that there was so much wasted space in the margins between panels.
Oh, I remember the margins.
You remember the margin? I went as far as to create a custom plugin that hooked into the UI code of the editor and removed those margins. The only issue was that if I completely removed the margins, the split window areas where you can drag it to increase a specific window size,
Yeah, I remember that as well. I made a
they
little.
stopped working. Yeah.
Yeah, I made something to fix that. But
You
I
did.
never made a tutorial.
You did. You went into the source code of the engine, right?
Yeah.
And then you changed something that allowed the grabbing area to be larger than the visual area. Do I remember this correctly?
Yeah, something like
You were a flipping hero, man. That was amazing. And then the Godot team. Eventually, there was a contributor that did this as well, and it's now in the engine. And
It's a lot better than what my version was.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I need to compare.
Mine was horrible, but it worked. That's all
It
that
did
matters.
work. Yeah. So so have you seen this post by I think Yuri on Twitter?
I haven't come to
PYC.
Twitter that much.
No. Okay. Right. But regardless, I think it was by Yuri. I don't want to credit the wrong person, but again, correct me if I'm wrong. In the comments of this podcast, mentioned that the gaps are now going to be removable in the editor options in official Godot builds.
Didn't they remove this already?
No, that was my custom theme. So
Oh.
what they've done is that they allowed more of the editor to be customizable through a theme.
Right.
So I no longer needed an add-on. I just used a custom theme that I made by myself. And
Yeah, I thought they were already in because I've been using your themes
Oh, no.
since you gave it to me.
You've been using the theme I made,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, for anyone interested in this, if you head over to Google and you type in Godot gapless theme on GitHub, you'll be able to find that theme. Lovely. Wow.
Amazing.
I had no idea you've been using it. That's really cool to hear. I've been using it as well. I'll be honest. It's the first thing I do when I set up a new development environment.
Do you do that often?
Well, so I recently built a new PC, so I had to put it there, and
Right.
then I installed Linux. So first I installed Windows, set up my development environment there, and then I installed Linux, where I had to set it up again. And every time I do this, the first repo that I clone is the Godot 4 gapless editor theme, because I just can't look at those gaps. I have a how there's a love and hate relationship. I just have a hate relationship with this one. But yeah, now it's officially going to be a toggle, a sort of a theme that you can toggle in the editor settings.
So I need to compare your theme versus the new official one.
I can't wait. To do a deep dive into this. Yeah. Okay. Right. So we know how we got to Godot now, right?
We do.
I went through obscure manners. You played GTA 1.
You did as well.
So apart, so that's the past, and another big part of the past is Geppy. You've released some games on Itch. Is there a memorable game, one of those games that you've released on Itch that you specifically remember as a game that was really good?
I mean, I think the first game I published on Edge is the most memorable one, and probably the best one out of all of them.
Really?
Maybe the second,
Wait.
game is more.
The first one. When did you release the first one?
It's been at least a couple of years. I can really quickly go to Edge and see. When
Oh,
that
sure.
was.
No worries though. But yeah, that's interesting. So you were saying that your first, because usually people get better at things the longer they do them.
I mean, my second game's more technically advanced. I don't know. It doesn't. It just doesn't look great.
Wait. So are we talking about visuals or the overall feel of the game?
Because my second game, it had these shadows that I don't really know how to explain this. The characters switched colors when they went in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more challenging to me because I suck at shaders. So it
Right.
was it was a step towards
Mhm.
something better, I think, but it wasn't that great.
No, I completely understand. So what you're saying is that your first game was more fun.
I think so, and it looks a lot better visual.
Okay, very nice. Because I think that this is a big part of something that sometimes is a little omitted in conversations, right? So
Mm,
so if you become a better programmer, if you become a better artist, if you become a better game designer, it doesn't always necessarily guarantee. It can, but it doesn't 100% guarantee a better game, right?
yeah,
I find that
I agree.
amazing. Because there are some games that I've made in the past. They can still be found on my itch as well. And thinking back on those games, I find them sometimes more fun than games that I am capable of doing today. Although it is night and day difference in terms of how good a programmer I am. Right, so my skill has increased. I
Yeah,
couldn't put a value on it regarding how much, but sometimes even the new games I make aren't as fun.
I
Hmm.
agree.
Are you working on any games now? Or if you went over to check the release date of that game, when was it?
2020.
2020.
That
Oh,
was
really
the
nice.
first game I published. I don't have that many games. It's just um, three jam games over there.
Oh, no worries.
Uh,
How many games are there on your age?
it was just three. I
Three.
haven't published that many. Most of them are just little side projects here
Oh, nice. Right, gotcha. Are you working on any side projects at the moment? And also, by the way, what do you do in life?
and there. Well, I've been a freelancer for a while. I make um, I'm working for someone to make a Steam game actually
Mhm.
on Godot.
Wait, you're working with someone to make a Steam game
Yes,
at the moment?
uh, yes,
Whoa.
freelancing.
I didn't know about
But
this. Nice.
that's not my job. My I got a job last year as
Hmm.
a software developer. So I've just been in that. It's not game dev, unfortunately, but it's still something. So
Okay.
on the side, I just work on the Godot project.
That's very cool. So on the side, you're working on the freelance Godot project. And do you have any
Yeah,
projects outside of that? Just your own game that you're working on?
not Godot, but I've been learning new languages just to like
Oh,
widen
look at you being a fancy programmer.
my.
What what languages have you dived into?
There's two. I'm still learning a bunch, but there's Rust and also Go.
And also Go. Okay, okay. Wait, we need to go through this. So Rust seems to have the the most, I don't even know what words to put in place here. So anyone who
Love.
uses Rust is, I wouldn't say loud, I'd say hardcore, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
people I hear talk about Rust, about how great Rust is, they are so hardcore, so hardcore. They're like, yeah,
that's
you can
part of the
make it.
reason why.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, go on.
they basically go, yeah, sure, you can make a game in a day, but I can make a game in 2 years. But you know how memory safe it's going to be. you know, that- that's the.
That is true.
It's incredible. It's like, sure, what you can do in a week, it'll take me 10 years, but it'll be so solid. So from your, I don't know how true this is, and I'm not trying to make fun of these, of these remarks. I find them fascinating, and that's also why I'm curious about this. Is it true? Is this really how programming in Rust is?
I don't think I'm qualified enough to tell you if it is.
Okay.
I'm still learning. There's so much that confused me as it takes forever to make anything simple. But so far, it does kind of seem like it.
Okay. Okay. So the safety thing is real.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the compiler yells at me every time I writes anything.
Oh yeah, I've also heard this comparison that when you get compiler message an error from basically any language in the world, it's like getting a slap in the face of like, you forgot about a variable. What about this pointer over there? But when Rust gets you an error in the compiler, it's like getting a hug.
I mean, yeah.
Is this
In a way.
true? And if it is true, why? I can't even imagine what it feels like for a compiler to be hugging you. What is this?
I mean, I guess it's kind of like it's trying to help you, but it's also not letting go till you fix it.
So it's a pretty tight hug, right? It's like
Yeah.
really tight one. Okay. And with Rust, what engine are you using there? Is it Bevy?
I do plan on using Bevy at some point just to learn the language, but I'm currently haven't even touched Bevy yet because I'm still learning the basics.
Okay. And with Go, I always imagine that the programming language Go was made by Google just because of the letters. Is it true?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Maybe.
Google, what sort of a language would they make?
Oh yeah, it is. Open
is?
source programming language supported by Google. Okay.
Okay,
now I'm not sure
supported.
anymore.
All right. So what are your plans with this language? Are you already using a game engine that
What,
uses
Go?
Go? Yeah.
No, I haven't even searched for a Go game engine. I just wanted to learn it so I can say that I know something. I don't know. It's just
You've got
stuff I want to learn.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, learning Rust, that is super cool. That is super cool. It's like being part of a gang, right? Of like a Mensa gang. Right. Okay. So you're working on that. Right on. Now, I've had, so in terms of projects, as I mentioned at the beginning, I co-founded Mad Cookies, which is a super small indie studio here in Bratislava, where I live, in 2019. We did a bunch of mobile games, a bunch of client work, and then we started working on our first commercial PC game called Card Bob. But I streamed a lot, and then we finally released it last year, August. It was a financial failure, but as a project, so we made, to this date, I think we made altogether $3,000. That's before any taxes, before any cuts from the stores, just, plain amount of money that went in there. Now, it was a very good and successful project, as in terms of a studio, because we released the game on Steam.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? Now, have you? So now, when releasing Cardboard, after releasing Cardboard on Steam, I suddenly understood. Before then, it was theoretical knowledge, but after I released it, I suddenly realized it's so true. So people often say, your first game is definitely going to suck. Don't worry about it. But what's most important in terms of Steam is actually releasing a game on Steam, because you learn so much. Before releasing Cardboard, I thought, that's probably true. I believe it. It's one of the reasons why I'm pushing so hard to make sure it's on there. But after releasing, I completely agree with this thing. Have you ever felt this motivation almost? Have you ever felt motivated to put a game on Steam, to make a game for Steam, to release it on Steam, just to have this experience?
I mean, I can't say I have yet, but I would like to have my own game on Steam someday.
Do you have any ideas?
I just need a good idea.
Right. What are you talking about? There's this subreddit called Game Ideas. Have you ever been there? Have you ever visited?
I have, yeah.
It's so fun.
There's something.
Those ideas, I really like it. I mainly like that place because many people who do not design games believe that a story is a game idea. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of posts on that subreddit that take that take stories as game ideas, and then people are like, "So, what do you think about my amazing game?" A story of four swordsmen ventured into the world, and they met this person called, I don't know, Rena.
Oh,
So, yeah. Do you have any ideas that you are thinking of making but haven't started yet?
I do have a couple ideas, mostly just like puzzle games, like short experiences. I'm not really good at making up, like coming up with stories. So maybe I should go to that subreddit and get a story from there.
But also games with minimal stories are extremely
Yeah,
valid, right? Those are great games as well. I mean, think
yeah.
about Brotato. What is the story
Oh yeah.
of
So
Brotato?
they probably
I,
probably
I
no story.
woke up as a weird looking black and white potato. Guns. So I think you're fine with
Yeah,
that story.
yeah. So my game would probably be around that size, like potato size,
Mhm.
maybe a bit more. Yeah, I do like those types of games and puzzle games, so it would probably be something
Nice. Wait.
in
Did you
that
say
way.
that something slightly bigger than Brotato?
Yeah.
Oh, right. In what terms are you thinking that it would be bigger than Brotato, right? Because Brotato has its size mainly in the depth of the systems, the
Yeah.
weapons, the
I
upgrade
mean,
system.
the loop is very small, I think.
Hmm.
But so I'm think when I say bigger, I meant like slightly bigger game loop. So it takes maybe a bit longer.
Ah, I
I don't know.
see. I
It
see.
might not be a valid size comparison. But I mean,
Oh no, I think this is a super interesting topic as well when it comes to
mm,
the length of a game loop, right? So, specifically in so a Brotato is a roguelite, right?
yeah.
It's a roguelite game. Sometimes people argue about what's a roguelike and what's a roguelite. Have you ever been part of an argument like this, or do you?
Not an argument, but I do sometimes wonder which one was which. And whenever someone mentions it, I have to go Google. Okay, which one was which?
It's actually very straightforward, right? So a roguelike
Yeah.
with a K is the one where you have permadeath, you always lose everything at the end.
Mm,
Roguelite is a roguelike game, but where there is something permanent. So maybe you die and you keep your experience points.
right.
Maybe you die and you keep a single weapon. Something permanent,
Okay.
roguelike. So a Brotato is roguelike because I believe you can, I'm not sure about upgrades, I haven't played that much, but you do unlock new characters.
Yeah.
And are there any in between run upgrades?
Uh, th- there are, yeah.
There are. Okay.
That's the shop.
Okay. There
And
you
whenever
go.
you level up,
There you go. The moment you have something like that, it's definitely a roguelike game. So, and thinking about how long a single run should take is a really big question because So, for example, with Cardboard, the one that we released in September 2023, we were thinking of having a run last 20 minutes, right? With the
yeah,
game that we're working on now, which is going to be deck building, trains, roguelike as well, we're thinking 40 minutes would be good, right? And you can just throw random numbers out there. But the interesting part is creating reasons or finding the reasons and making substantial, um, or rather giving it correct context for those 40 minutes to be a good idea, right?
yeah.
What sort of a length of a run or a play session would you be aiming for with your idea?
I don't know. I think maybe around the same as you. I don't.
Oh, as me, do you mean
Not really
Cardboard
sure.
or Fog Piercer?
Fog Piercer.
Fog Piercer. Okay, so 40 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
I think Card Pop is like longer, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had one player in Cardboard play the game, a single run, right? A single run, something like 8 hours. I don't,
Probably
I
left
don't
the
think that's healthy.
computer on.
Hopefully, I actually hope so. I really hope that player wasn't actually actively playing the game for 8 hours. Because we also had a
Have you?
memory leak issue back then. And,
Oh,
the longer you played and the more rooms you visited, the slower it got.
hmm.
Oof.
Do you know what the average run length is?
In Cardbob,
Yeah.
sadly, I don't. I only know what the play session is, but not the run length.
Okay.
I know that the average play session was around. I'm not sure now. Either 12 minutes or 35 minutes. I know it's a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
but yeah. It was either of those two. I remember both numbers, but there's the mean time and the average time of a session.
Yeah.
And the mean time is the only one that makes sense because the average one, you get a single person that goes way beyond everyone else, and suddenly
Mm.
your average is super high. Yeah. But yeah, for Cardbob, like I imagine it could be between 10, 20 minutes for a run. It could be.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know why you'd be looking at 40 minutes session time?
Not really. No.
No.
I just want something that isn't rotato length. I think it's. I think the loop is so short.
Imagine sending a pitch deck to a publisher. And you go, why my game? Because it's not a brotato. It's not brotato. I like
Yeah.
it.
I mean, the game is good. I really like the game, but I like longer games, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very interesting you say that. I also feel this specifically with I don't feel this with Vampire Survivors.
Mm.
But I feel this with Brotato, that I would like to play a game just like Brotato, where it lasts a little bit longer, where I can enjoy the power of the guns I've upgraded and assembled just a little more.
I think also the size of the map also makes a huge difference. Like in Potato,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
so small. Like there's not much you can do.
It's the size of your screen, right?
Yeah.
So, a funny story. So I got an ultra wide monitor because I thought that maybe it'll give me a bigger map in Brotato.
Did it?
It didn't. It didn't. No.
Oh.
No. But I've got an ultra wide monitor now. You've got.
That's good.
Yeah. The way I got there doesn't matter. It's the result.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I agree with that. Because you're limited just roughly your screen size, but it is constrained to the aspect ratio that the game was designed for. Yeah. Well, on that note, this is all the time we have for this episode. Geppy, before the episode ends, first of all, I'd like to thank you. Second of all, I'd like you to share where people can follow you if they want to know more about you and more about this game that will be longer than Brotato. All right. And it's not going to be Brotato.
It's not going to be
Designed and created by you. So is there a place where people can,
I mean, if you go to my itch, that's probably the best place to find contacts. So it's gappy.itch.io.
Very good. Very good. I'll also put the link in the description notes. And that is awesome. All right. So once again, Geppy, thank you very much for being here. This was a special episode because it's the first one.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and you're great company, Geppy.
Oh, nah. Oh.
Nah. You're a really good person to know. All right. And with that, so this is the first episode, the end of the first episode. Next episode is an interview with Fermar Martin, who releases up to 4 games every year. That's something to be looking forward to. Regardless.
That is something I really need to get to that level.
Oh, yeah, we all do. We all do, don't
Yeah.
we? Can you imagine releasing 4 games in a year? Now, we're not talking about, a game where you change the sprites and you release it again under a different name. It's actually different games.
Yeah.
But yeah. Right. Well, that is it. And here we go. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.